It was an unusually wet and chilly evening in Athens. The full moon illuminated the night sky, but the atmosphere felt dark, like a heavy shadow had obscured the new Hellenic capital. At the neighborhood of Psyri, where the church of Agia Mavra stood, there were just a few oil lamps lighting the way. There was no one around, and one of the coachmen was ready to take his horse carriage home. But an old woman dressed in all black approached him and asked him for a ride to the neighborhood of Plaka, close to the Horagic monument of Lysikrates. There was something uncanny about the woman. The horse grew skittish and became uneasy. The coachman also started to feel scared, but his fear was completely irrational. There was just a frail old woman standing in front of him. He must have been affected by the darkness surrounding the area. He agreed to one last ride before he headed home. Throughout the ride, the man felt chills. His heart rate was rising, and thankfully, he would not need more than 10 minutes to cover the distance. But it was at the very destination where he almost lost his senses. As soon as the carriage arrived at the ancient monument, he witnessed not one, not two, but 3 black-clad women stepping down from the carriage, as if the one and only passenger had multiplied. They paid for the ride and disappeared into the darkness. The next morning, the coachman, still recovering from his nightmarish ride, was sipping his coffee at the local cafeneon when the newspaper boy arrived with the daily news. He immediately saw the name of the monument plastered on the front page. The neighborhood he had just dropped off the 3 women at was now in quarantine. Plaka had reported numerous cases of smallpox, an epidemic that was going to cause chaos and death for some weeks. Welcome to the 21st episode of Helinika podcast. I am your hostess Marielena, just a curious girl in the search of meaning. And today we explore the 3 deities Greeks fear to this day. What you have just heard is a dramatized retelling of an incident that was reported in the 19th century Athens and has been included in the Greek folkloric study Paradosis conducted by Nikolaos Politis in the early 20th century. No one really named the 3 black-clad women, but this story was similar to countless other stories across Greece. In 1978, for example, days before a deadly earthquake in Thessaloniki, multiple people reported that they saw blood-clad women either warning them about the calamity that was coming or mocked them for what was to come as if they deserved it. A cab driver had reportedly lost a customer mid-ride, only to find her suitcase in the trunk. The suitcase was full of freshly dug soil, a macabre finding. Usually, these women were old. They were black, and sometimes they were seen sewing, which is a common hobby for this age group. Who were these bringers of bad omens, and how did they know the future?
And night bore the Fates, to whom wise Zeus gave the greatest honor, Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos, who give mortal men at their birth, both evil and good to have, and they pursue the transgressions of men and of gods, and these goddesses never cease from their dread anger until they punish the sinner with a sore penalty.
This is what Hesiod mentions in his work Theogony, where he explains the background of all deities. The Fates, in this case, have one important task at hand: to give each human their meros, their merit, and that is why they were called Moirai in Greek, or Mires, as they are called with the Greek pronunciation. The 3 women achieve this with needlework. Clotho spins the thread. Lachesis measures its length, and Atropos cuts the thread with her shears. Today, Greeks use the phrase «κόπηκε το νήμα της ζωής», the life's thread was cut, to refer to someone's death. The Mires held people's lives in their palms. The Fates are children of the night, the goddess Nyx, although other sources mention that they are daughters of Zeus and Thetis. They are also considered sister of the Kyres, the terrifying death spirits who are drawn in battlegrounds and places of violent death, and who may still lurk in the shadows of such places. They were also the sisters of Thanatos, Death himself, but also Nemesis, the goddess of retribution. The Fates would also control the Erinyes, the chthonic goddesses of vengeance, who inflicted punishment for evil deeds, particularly upon those who sought to avoid their rightful destiny. If you are interested in this topic, actually, I recommend that you watch the previous episode, which is about everyone's life quest. Usually, the Fates are portrayed as old crones, crafting our destinies with their needlework. But in Roman tradition, only Atropos was an old woman. So many later depictions that followed their Latin descriptions represent its fate differently. Clotho is a young maiden. Lachesis appears as a fully mature woman, and Atropos as an old crone. The three deities are part of so many myths and even philosophical works, even in Plato's works. In his Republic, for example, the three Fates are daughters of Anagi, necessity. The philosopher described how the three Mires sing in unison with the music of the sirens. Lachesis sings the things that were, Clotho the things that are, and Atropos the things that are to be. Sometimes the Fates were described as one singular entity, Mira. An example are the epic poems of Homer where Zeus, the king of the gods, works closely with her. It is also often insinuated that Fate or the Fates were above the gods, including Zeus, who had to obey their decisions. Actually, the idea that even gods must submit to fate is a key theme in Greek mythology. It emphasizes the concept of a universal order that transcends even the most powerful beings. As powerful as they were, the Fates had dedicated temples of worship across Greece. We know from Pausanias that they had at least three, one in Corinth, one in Thebes, and one in Sparta. We are also aware of altars dedicated to them in Olympia, Delphi, and various places in Greece. So far, there haven't been any freestanding monumental temples still standing, but they may be uncovered in the future. Only they know. As you know, eventually all worship to the ancient gods and goddesses stopped, as the Greek world was Christianized. But did the belief to fates or fate even subside? Let's take a brief pause to let you know that here on YouTube, a secret book club exists that you can join today by becoming a Helinika Society member. Starting in September, we explore masterpieces of some of the most influential modern Greek authors, but also works from the international literature scene, books that are set in Greece and present the local culture from a unique perspective. You can find more information in the pinned comment and in the description. Now let's get back to our topic. On this podcast, we have seen that old beliefs never really die. They transform into something new. The Fates were now three supernatural beings in the form of old crones, Sometimes they were nothing short of a bad omen, as we have seen in the stories I mentioned earlier, wearing all black and appearing before a calamity. Other times, their role was similar to the ones of fairy godmothers, visiting newborn babies at night to offer them their gifts, their talents and destiny. In this case, they all wore white. Although they were no longer worshipped, folk practices were invented to appease them. At this point, the Greeks believed that the fates now were writing down someone's destiny. Therefore, it is not uncommon for Greeks today to use the phrase "ήταν γραμμένο," it was written down, or "ήταν γραφτό της μοίρας του," it was written by his fate, when referring to an unfortunate event. Nikolaos Politis, the father of folklore studies in Greece, had documented a long list of traditions that were still prevalent to his day. In Karpathos, Kalymnos, and other islands, the 7 first days after a baby's birth are crucial. The local women call upon the Mires to visit their home to meet their babies and determine their fate. The grandmothers and aunts of the newborn are called to bake sweets and serve them on 3 plates that will be placed on a table late at night, when the fates are expected to come, so that the baby's fate will be sweet. The baby's mother would then sing a lullaby, letting the infant fall asleep while calling upon the 3 women. In other parts of Greece, on the 3rd night after the baby's birth, the family members place coins, silk threads, and other items in its crib, as that was the night the fates visited them. What is truly remarkable is that in some locations the midwife would spend the night at the baby's home on the fateful night, pretending she's asleep while the fates visited. She would listen carefully to what the Mires determined for the infant's life, and the next morning she would narrate everything to the mother, who was usually too weak and too tired to stay awake herself. In our modern times, most Greeks may not necessarily believe in the personification of fate, that there are 3 women or 1 woman visiting you at night. But the long belief in the 3 deities throughout our history has influenced our culture. You see it through our language. We say "ήταν γραφτό," it was written. We use the thread of life as a metaphor, το νήμα της ζωής. Many Greeks also showcase fatalistic beliefs when surveyed. Fatalism views the entire universe as a deterministic system. All events, actions, and behaviors are due to fate or destiny. Greeks today are not pure fatalists, of course, but everyone can agree that in the face of tragic events such as a young person's death, it is not uncommon to see people blaming it to fate rather than other circumstances or factors. It is also interesting to see that Greeks often display a lower perceived autonomy compared to other Europeans. According to Eurostat's 2023 General Life Satisfaction Survey, Greece's mean life satisfaction was 6.9 out of 10, below the EU average of 7.3. While not a direct measure of fatalistic beliefs, it is generally believed that lower life satisfaction has a correlation with lower feelings of agency or autonomy. In 2016, an empirical investigation of autonomy and life satisfaction in Europe titled "The Value of Autonomy for the Good Life" showed that Greece was the only EU country around the midpoint and among the lowest in perceived autonomy. I really wonder what our beliefs around fate may have to do with how much control we think we have in our lives, the politicians we choose, and how capable we are to change things we are unsatisfied with. I'm really curious to read your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching till the end. I hope you found this video interesting. As always, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next episode.